Magdalene's blog 53. The places I became immersed in belonged to no reality anyone would wish to imagine. The spirits dragged me into levels of darkness in their desperate rampage through my unconscious being that were beyond my worst nightmares. But even in those dreadful times, I felt somehow protected. Protection that flowed with me, because the hope that had come in the light and voice of another soul had warmed me and would not be extinguished. Ice froze my blood, and fire burned my flesh, but neither quite reached where I was. Serpents coiled in every orifice of existence, but could not bite into me with their fatal poison. Darkness rushed throughout me, but never succeeded in engulfing my soul. Hate, lust, anger, and despair washed over the fabric of my being, but could not leave their residue in me. Then, after an unknowable time, amidst the hunger and thirst of that desert of the soul, a rain began to fall. A rain that reached me where the darkness hadn't, washed me, woke me. Rachel again washed the sores of the woman Mary, and with another sponge brought water to her parched lips. For a moment her eyelids fluttered and opened. She appeared to try to raise her head, but having looked into the eyes of this person nursing her, she settled back and closed her eyes again. Johannes had left, and so had Rachel. Both had stayed the first night, and then Rachel had gone back to the temple with intention to return later. Johannes stayed half the day, but felt more and more that this was no longer his place, his business. Rachel understood this and gave him provisions, making sure he had everything he needed to travel on to Bethany. Then her friend Rachel returned and told of another time that Ariane had sent her a letter for this Mary a few years ago, a letter that they had sent on to Mary's mother in Magdalene. But Mary had made it clear that she hadn't wanted to take it further. Clearly, if the mother and daughter could be reunited, that would be a good thing. To have a daughter return possessed by spirits, wouldn't that be almost impossible to bear? But what of that healer in Palestine who was reputed to be able to cast out evil spirits and devils? He was said to be living in Capernaum, so close to Magdala where her mother lived, and maybe still was. Rachel decided she would travel there with Mary to try to see him, once she was strong enough. Coming around to this real world again was almost harder to bear than the inner dreams that I had just endured for what seemed an eternity. The spirits were still in my mind, and their natures were still as much a part of me, of what I had become. It filled me with an overwhelming sadness for all the beauty that had gone from my life, and a terrible tiredness from having to bear this tormented destiny. The healer Rachel was very kind, but I could not respond as I would have wished, but only with a guarded lethargy that I had learnt was able to keep at bay the worst of their interference, but so foreign to my own nature. She seemed to understand my problem, but said there was nothing she could do to help except tend to my physical well-being. Despite the terrible depression that weighed me down and highlighted my helplessness, having my body's needs looked after was a wonderful kindness. Then one morning, Rachel sat with me and said she was going to travel to Capernaum to visit a master healer there, and wanted me to come as well. His name was Yeshua. Some little spark of light seemed to strike my heart as she told me this, a chord that struck a resonance in my soul. Yeshua, Yeshua. A face from a vision or a dream came to my mind, and the spirits could not forbid it. Yes, I will come with you if I may, I responded with what seemed like the first smile I had ever managed. Rachel hugged me, and the spirits returned, howling within my mind. Feeling my renewed distress, she released me quickly, her face mirroring concern for what was raging inside me. So she prepared for the journey, and I treasured the new hope that had joined me in the place where the spirits could not reach, allowing it to endure and be nourished. Rachel chose the mule cart as best for travelling in, with comparatively little to burden them, and Aberneth to accompany them on a small horse. He was a young man, dark, wiry, and completely trustworthy. His father, Ashenbinder, was a ship's captain, and she had known the son since he was a child. Rachel had several competent people to help her run her business and her home, which gave her the freedom she desired. She liked to involve herself in all of her inheritance, but not to be tied to it completely. She managed this so well that she had the freedom to make journeys such as they were now undertaking with few attendant worries. The day was hot, and travelling was pleasant, though Mary, under cover in the back of the cart, appeared to be as glum as ever. Rachel couldn't imagine what it was like for her, though she had had glimpses of the seven spirits, hungry to possess her completely. Glimpses, too, of the real Mary that still struggled not to be overwhelmed. For most of the time there seemed a kind of stalemate. Rachel felt genuine pity and a slight desperation for this venture they were embarked on together. "Bryn," she called to the man riding slightly ahead of them, "can you remember how far it is to the inn we want to stay at?" "About an hour's ride at the speed we are making, I would say," he answered, letting the mule come up beside his horse. "Do you think you could ride ahead and check that they have rooms for us then?" she asked, "and then get back to us? I want to know if we're going to have to travel further." Aberneth said that he could be back with the answer within half an hour, and that the horse would be glad of the chance to stretch his legs a bit. They made the inn Rachel wished for, and stayed at another on the following night, before they came within sight of Capernaum and the Sea of Galilee.